Okay. Thank you very much, dear Anne, for the kind invitation to come to this place again. I've been here 4 years ago. I'm extremely excited to present my new book, Holistic Cancer Medicine, to you and to give you a short summary of what the book is about in this lecture. Let's start with the word holistic. Holistic means everything that is. It's a beautiful Greek word that means the entire range of phenomena, everything that is. And that is not what you get at a Western world medical consultation. You get immediately an approach that I would call reductionistic. The word was already mentioned a few times by Dr. Block and other speakers. And I just want to raise our awareness that in Western world medicine, as it is taught today, and as you are treated when you see a regular doctor, it's a reductionistic approach. That means we reduce a variety of phenomena, a variety of events to a tiny little fraction of reality. And in a little while you will understand better what I mean with that, talking about cancer. I will present a 12-fold cancer map that is also a vitality map to learn what vitality is about. And I will present cancer as a multifaceted, very complex disease that is not only located where you see it. It's not only located in the spot where your body grows a lump. It is everywhere. It's a systemic disease. And that is what the key idea of my presentation is, to show you that there is an entire organism, an entire human being around the growing tumor, and that you will not understand the nature of the growing tumor without looking at the human being and the organism around. Cancer cells occur in every human organism all the time. This phrase was a shocking news to me when I read it for the first time some 25 years ago. I got my MD degree and license some 30 years ago, so I was not informed about this fundamental truth while I was a medical student. And this phrase is, of course, a game changer. It means cancer does not fall into your body like a falling star from a blue sky. It has been in your body before. And the question is not only what can we do to eliminate this particular cell growth or tumor or lump, but the fundamental question must be, why does our organism allow these cells to grow that have been there, obviously, before? A healthy immune system, just hit any button. Yeah. So if cancer is in our body, and if a healthy organism happens to produce a few thousand cancer cells every day, imagine everybody who sits here will produce during this day a few thousand cancer cells. And hopefully not everybody here is diagnosed with cancer as a disease, but we all have it as a cellular biological phenomenon within us. Then the question is, of course, what stops us? What prevents the development of cancerous disease? What stops the growth of cancer cells inside our body, if it's a fact that we all have them? And one key dimension, one key organ that represents the healthy part of our body that keeps cancer constantly under control and at bay is, of course, our immune system. So we have to learn and to understand how the immune system is blocked to not do its job. When we are diagnosed at the age of 50 with breast cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer, which is one of the average ages or the peaks in Western world societies when cancer hits the body and becomes a tangible, feelable problem that can be diagnosed, there is a story before that. What happened before? What happened the years before a doctor can detect the tumor that has put the immune system off track so that the cells had a chance to grow? That's a very important and interesting question to me. And by telling you that we all have cancer cells and we all are born with tumor genes, oncogenes, or the preforms of oncogenes, I want to present you the traditional classic definition of what health is. Health is not the absence of cancer. Health is not the absence of viruses or bacteria or fungi. Health is the possibility to live with a certain amount of viruses and fungi and bacteria and cancer cells, and it's ultimately a balance, or with the beautiful Greek word, a homeostasis, a up and down of biological events within a certain range. And when that range is left, when the ups and downs get too shaky, then we talk about dis-ease, the loss of ease. The WHO definition for health is not a balance. It's the absence of suffering, the absence of symptoms, the absence of this and that. And that is, to me, or was never a definition that I liked, because who is ever healthy if you define it by not having any symptoms? We all have symptoms. We all go through crises. Health is the ability to stay within a certain balance and manage the crises. So my hypothesis is that cancer is a disease caused by a deep change of the biological conditions and the entire organism around the tumor where you can see it. And I will show you 12 what I call terrain factors or vitality factors that, when they're not vitality factors but turn around to their opposite, become cancer attractive factors. And I will talk about a vitality field versus a cancer attracting field that characterizes the complexity of our organism. So in a way, I break down the word health or vitality into 12 sectors where it becomes manageable, understandable, and develops into a map that you can use to raise your vitality, to raise your health, your capacity to manage crises. And the totality of these 12 factors do two things. One is it damages the energy production of our cells. That mainly takes place in tiny little compartments inside our cells called the mitochondria. The mitochondria are the power plants of life. That's where we produce the energy of what we eat, together with what we inhale, oxygen. And cancer has been characterized in articles published in Nature and Science, and books are written about this phenomenon as a mitochondrial disease. If you look at it from the perspective of a biochemist, you can say cancer is the consequence of a mitochondrial damage. And the one who described it for the first time was awarded with 2 Nobel Prizes. It was the German physiologist and biochemist Otto Warburg, who received his first Nobel Prize in 1932 and his second in 1944, discovering the nature of cancer as a mitochondrial damage consequence and the details around it, that cancer is a disease that thrives in the absence of oxygen and uses glucose as the main metabolic fuel. So these 12 factors that you will see very soon damage the cellular energy production. And at the same time, oh, that was too fast. At the same time, it also changes the way our immune system reacts to cells that do not belong to our body as cancer cells, by making the immune system less and less effective to discover cancer cells and attack cancer cells. And after a while, these 12 field factors that I will show you very soon change the immune system and turn the immune system's activity around from protecting us against cancer to protecting the cancer against us. Sounds crazy, but it's a fact described in modern articles about the nature of concomitant immunity around tumor cells, that a part of our immune system starts to protect the tumor when we have lived a while with the tumor in our body. So Another key question is how can we turn around this misled and upside down situation in our immune system? So this is the map that I found and studied the last, I can say, 25 years. And the 12 factors is what my book presents in 12 chapters to show you what you can do to work on your vitality and reduce the cancer-attracting effects of these 12 fields factors. And to give you a first overview, we will go through this picture a second time a little later in my presentation. So as a first overview, we talk about inflammation. We talk about toxification or toxicity and intoxication. We talk about the importance of an abundance of nutrients that we need in order to stay vital and healthy and be capable to keep cancer at bay. We need definitely an amount of fresh and pure water every day. We need sufficient oxygen saturation to our cells and tissues. We need a proper and healthy gut flora. We need to manage stress and go through the crises of ups and downs in our mood, in our inner stress reaction to our life. We need to take care of the right amount of carbs and sugar to have some blood sugar, but not too much and not too little. So sugar is a special field. The entire immune system that controls the balance between what belongs to me and what does not belong to me is an important factor on my field map. We need to care for powerful mitochondria to break down the food together with the oxygen we inhale to have the energy that we live from. We need to keep a balance between alkalinity and acidity, and we need to keep the infections at bay that constantly invade us. The world is not a sterile place. There is no place on earth, not even in an operating theater, that is totally free from potentially pathogenic viruses, fungi, or bacteria. So we will always need to have a strong immune system to get the germs at a distance and not be invaded by microorganisms that should not run our life. So this is the circle of the 12 factors, and if these 12 systems are in balance, then our body is in balance and we are in health, and we have healthy cells that thrive within a body that is characterized by these 12 factors. A few spiritual aspects of the disease, and I'm extremely excited to have an author and scientist amongst us here who inspired me a lot for my work, and her book is a must-read for all of my patients. Thank you, Dr. Kelly Turner, for the work you did. In a few minutes, we will listen to your presentation. And what we do at our clinic, beside all the infusions and the hyperthermia treatments and the oxygen treatments and what we do biologically, we also speak about spiritual aspects of the disease that are very well explained in Kelly Turner's book, Radical Remission and Radical Hope. 10 factors, and 7 of these 10 factors were spiritual, emotional, mental, spiritual, mental, emotional. So these questions are very important to us, and we discuss it in group sessions and in individual coaching sessions with our patients to honor the fact that these factors, that these dimensions, questions, what is the purpose of my life? How can I release suppressed emotions? How can I deepen my spirituality? That they are incorporated in a holistic treatment. Because if we don't do that, I believe we would throw away at least 50% of our chances to get the disease under control. The immune system, where does the name immunus or immune system come from? It comes from the Latin word immunis. That was the name for special troops in the Caesar's army. These special troops received a better pay and had special skills. They were exempt from the more tedious work of the regular soldiers, and that's where biologists took the word immune for the cells in our body that protect us against the threats of life. So it's mentioned that the immunists got a better pay, so we should pay our immune system, the members of our immune system, a good pay, which is what Dr. Block and Penny Block told us, and already yesterday when we listened to the presentation about healthy food, these immune cells inside our body really deserve excellent food, the micro molecules from the micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, the essential food components, otherwise they can't do their work. It's an extremely complex world that immunologists study. We know of more than 250 different members of our immune system, and they act together in concert like the musicians of a big orchestra. And the question is what alleviates the work of our immune system and what disrupts it. And my answer is the 12 factors that I will show you very soon again, and a little more in depth with some more details. If the immune system is capable to do its job, it looks like this. This is a cancer cell. The picture is an electron microscopy picture around 40,000 times magnification. And you see the yellow cell is a cancer cell, and the surrounding blue cells are lymphocytes that attack the cancer cell. And in a little while, this cell here will have drilled a hole in the cell body of the cancer cell and collapse it. So this happens inside ourselves all the time. What has happened if a tumor shows up as a tangible mass, and we know for some years before it became diagnosed, this constant repair, constant elimination of cancer cells has not been effective enough. This is a map that shows two ways how the body handles growing cancer cells. This part represents the normal cells where some cells fall into the cancer mode because of constant irritation, inflammation, toxicity, lack of oxygen, and the immune system comes and repairs it and transforms it into a healthy tissue. And this is the healthy cycle that happens in our glands, in our digestive tract organs all the time. Some cells fall into a cancerous mode, the immune system comes and repairs it. And as long as we are in this circle, we're not regarded to have cancer as a disease. We have it as a cellular phenomenon. But it can happen that this procedure of repairing the cancer cells with the immune system that we have does not result into a total reversal of the tumor growth, but that some cells remain and attract immune cells that start to protect it as if it was a wound. After a while, if this becomes more and more threatened by factors that I will show you very soon, like chronic inflammation, lack of oxygen, over-acidity, the immune system is overwhelmed and starts protecting the tumor growth instead of repairing it. And to mention one particular cell that has attracted a lot of interest in tumor immunology, it's a type of macrophage that is today called an M2 macrophage. Macrophage means big eater, macrophage, and it's supposed to eat up cancer cells. But after a while of chronic inflammation in the microenvironment around the tumor cells, the macrophages changes from what is called an M1, a healthy macrophage, into a pathological macrophage that's called M2 that starts protecting the tumors as if it was a healing wound, telling the rest of the immune system, don't go there, this is under reconstruction, please do not attack this wound-like scenario. But it's not a wound, it's cancer. And as long as we don't understand the mechanisms behind, and one of the key drivers of this change of immunological behavior is hypoxia, the lack of oxygen, and chronic inflammation, we will not be able to reverse this upside-down situation and make the immune system something that protects us again. This is a little movie that shows how macrophages work when they're in their healthy M1 phenotype, in their healthy behavior. So this is a tumor lump somewhere inside the body, a blood vessel that goes through it, and a cell, the purple cell, is a circulating tumor cell that has just been detected by a healthy macrophage that eats it up. Isn't that a gorgeous picture of self-healing? That's what we want. We want our macrophages to be active again, detecting the tumor cells and eating them up. So, another dimension of our health, already mentioned it a little bit, with these radical remission factors, is the discipline of psychoneuroimmunology. And it binds together three words that when I studied medicine in the 80s and early 90s were separate and not bind together. The words are psyche, our emotional life, neuro, which are the neurons, the nerve cells, and immunology, which is the science of the protective system within us. So P&I is a discipline that is fully acknowledged in the academic world since about 20 years back in time, and every larger university in the Western world today has a department for psychoneuroimmunology. And I was particularly interested in the work of Christian Schubert, who is a professor in psychoneuroimmunology at Innsbruck University in Austria. I guess he's the most famous psychoneuroimmunologist in Europe and the author of textbooks and many, many articles. And this phrase of his that I found in one of his books says it all. There is no difference between our feelings and our immune system. That means that in any moment, your feelings interact with your immune system. And it's widely proven. If you read his book, you can find stunning studies about the impact of watching a video to your immune system. If you watch a scary video, within an hour, your immune system goes down. If you watch an uplifting movie, family, love story, nature, something beautiful, your immune system grows in capacity to work for your health. So better watch out what you expose your senses to. Psychoimmunology, psychoneuroimmunology is always around. So mind and feelings is one aspect that touches our immune system. Bioterrain is another aspect, and altogether we need to bind these two realms together to get a strong immune system, or better than strong is actually an immune system that is balanced, that is that reacts meaningfully and with a reaction that is neither too strong nor too weak. Too strong would be autoimmune or too much inflammation. Too little would be no immune response at all, that foreign cells or invaders, microorganisms can grow within our body. So balance is, again, is the key word. Neither too much nor too little. So once again, the biofield in its cancer-attracting appearance. The 12 factors looked from an organism that allows cancer to grow. This organism, an organism that allows cancer to grow, is most likely affected by silent inflammation. Silent inflammation is the little sister of acute inflammation, which is a God-given self-protecting and self-repair mechanism. Without the ability to develop inflammation, we would have died long time ago. So thanks God we can react with inflammation. But another fact is that today's life or lifestyle is a pro-inflammatory lifestyle. We do too many things that switch on our inflammatory response, and in a way where inflammation cannot solve the problem. If I eat pro-inflammatory food, white sugar, white flour products, alcohol, red meat in too big amounts, then I switch on my inflammatory response reaction, but inflammatory response cannot solve the problem that I eat the wrong type of food. If I stress too much, if I sleep too little, I switch on my inflammatory system and accumulate more and more inflammatory activity that is not able to solve the problem, because the problem is lack of sleep, bad food, too much stress, etc. Toxicity. Well, we could talk for hours about toxicity. We have created a toxic environment. That's a fact. So let's reduce the exposure to toxicity as much as possible and don't forget to switch on your detox organs and detox systems in your body to be able to survive in a planet that is heavily influenced by toxic substances. Nutrition deficiencies, to mention a few very important ones when it comes to cancer, is vitamin D. Vitamin D deficiency raises the risk for instance, colon cancer by as much as 50%. Crazy number. So if you live in the northern hemisphere or in hot countries where you protect your skin from direct sunlight, you all need vitamin D supplementation to have a good vitamin D level, not only for your skeleton, but for your immune system. Water, intracellular water deficiency was described as a risk factor to develop cancer. George Pollack, a physicist and water expert from the University of Washington, has described in his books about water how important it is to be well hydrated for the production of healthy proteins, or if you don't get well hydrated, if you drink too little, you're prone to developing proteins that switch on tumor oncogenes. Oxygen deficiency, certainly a key driver. 2 Nobel Prizes were given for this discovery that cancer grows in the absence of oxygen. So whatever we can do to get better microcirculation and more oxygen into our tissues will help us to live longer. The gut flora aspect is enormous. Books are written about the microbiome and how it is linked to the rest of our body. Not to forget the importance of the connection between the microbiome and our immune system. Psychomental stress. For me, I already mentioned it, I believe it's more than 50% what stands as risk factors for people living in developed and wealthy countries. Psychomental stress is an enormously important factor. High blood pressure, high insulin, insulin-like growth factors were mentioned, is a key driver, another key driver, biological key driver, that changes our immune system's capacity and ability to detect cancer and cause a more and more misled immune system. If you look inside the cells, the mitochondrial damage is the result of toxicity, nutritional deficiency, silent inflammation, etc. Overacidity is another biological factor of that is a metabolical consequence of infections, inflammations, toxicity, stress. All these factors that I mentioned so far change the balance of our pH into the direction of overacidity, and infections itself are another very obvious risk factor for the development of cancerous diseases, very obvious in cervical cancer, liver cancer, but also as a contributing factor for all cancers that I have studied. So this is the field map in its negative form. If an organism is exposed to these factors for a too long time, then cancer is the consequence. Then the healthy field changes and becomes a cancer-attracting field. And cancer is an adaptation to these field factors. A reference that describes the transition from cancer protecting to cancer allowing details in our immune system. If you want to read more about it, as this is the reference, how our immune system changes, mostly because of more and more silent inflammation. So what we want to do is we want to turn this around and make these factors healthy again by raising our ability to control unwanted inflammation with all the plant-based anti-inflammatory drugs. Sometimes we use synthetic drugs to protect us from unwanted inflammation. We switch on our detox organs, the liver, the kidney, the skin through perspiration, enemas, liver, herbs like milk thistle, like dandelion, etc. So we work on detoxification. We do laboratory tests to find out the nutritional gaps and provide an abundance of micronutrients with good food or supplements. We care for healthy hydration. We drink 40 milliliters per kilogram body weight a day to give our body the liquid we need, the water we need to make all the chemical reactions happen. We care for sufficient oxygen supply. We go for longer walks, or we inhale oxygen in various ways. We work with oxygen saturation. We work with our microbiome by making a microbiome map with a comprehensive stool analysis, finding out the quality of the microbiome and using probiotics and prebiotics to restore and recreate a healthy microbiome. We work on psychomental stress. At our clinic, we teach patients mindfulness thinking, and I refer to John Kabat-Zinn and his work, mindfulness-based stress reduction. We work with the healing factors described in Dr. Kelly Turner's book, and we provide individual coaching to find out where are the inner conflicts of our patients, what can we do. Is forgiveness needed to come over an inner stress experience and to get back into balance? So we work a lot on these inner issues and stress balancing. Of course, we provide a low-carb diet. I don't need to speak more about that today. So one of the larger chapters in my book, what a low-carb diet is, modified Mediterranean diet, along the lines of Walter Longo's longevity diet, and a little more. And if we work on these factors, we can measure that our immune system switches back more and more from chronically inflamed, overactive, but overactive in the wrong way, to taking care of immune control step by step. We work on mitochondrial vitality with pulsed electromagnetic frequency devices, with micronutrients, with oxygen therapies, with detoxification techniques. And we balance the alkalinity, acidity balance with drugs and food. And we do diagnostics to find out if the patient is infected and take proper means to heal, to cure the infection. So what I just showed you is the strategy to reverse these field factors that act in concert to create a healthy terrain. And all this is what I would call naturopathic medicine, using natural techniques and approaches to do what Hippocrates told us to do already 2,500 years ago. And some 25, 30 years ago, my dream was to provide a cure of cancer with only naturopathic, natural techniques. But I came to understand that this is, in many, many cases, not strong enough to get the optimal result, especially not if the patient comes to me in a stage 3 or 4 cancer, heavily pretreated with the side effect profiles and some toxicity issues that come from the treatments given before the patient has come to me. So I agree 100% to what Dr. Block told us, that to get the best result, we need to take the best from both worlds, from the terrain-centered approach, which is the naturopathic approach, but also to take a little bit of the tumor-focused approach into our program, but to try to not do too much harm. So how can we do that? Before we go there, I want to show you pictures from whole body hypothermia. One of the techniques we use, it's like a intensive microsauna where the patient is monitored by a nurse 1-to-1, and we go into a fever range of high fever as if it was an influenza in a young, healthy individual. So around 100, 304 Fahrenheit under controlled circumstances. And I wanted to share with you 2 pictures that one of our patients drew right before her first whole body hyperthermia treatment and right after, an intuitive drawing of how she feels right before, spontaneous intuitive drawing right before the first whole body hyperthermia procedure. And if you try to describe it, what do you see? What do you see? A lot of red, but how is the red? Disorganized. No coherence. Chaotic. Frightening. Black and red. So 3 hours of whole body hyperthermia, relaxation music, the crisis of going through fever under controlled circumstances, and 4 hours later, same patient. She was not told anything more than just leave a fingerprint of how you feel. So this is to show that hyperthermia is not only a biological treatment, but also a psycho-emotional treatment that obviously changes the way the patient feels. How would you describe this? Relaxed, organized, harmonious, coherent. Light at the end of the tunnel, yeah. It's a little bit of a death experience to go through 3 hours of fever and to come out of the other side, but very relaxed. What do people tell us who had near-death experiences? Are they frightened? No. They lost their fear of death. So we should remember what Hippocrates told us. As to diseases, make a habit of two things: to help or at least to do no harm. I guess this phrase has never been as important as today when we have drugs at hand that not only cost $200,000 per treatment, but come with a long list of potential side effects. So what can we do to reduce the side effects and take advantage of modern drugs? My answer is insulin potentiation therapy with low-dose chemotherapy and radio wave hyperthermia localized. So holistic terrain treatments is for me the basis. Vitality on. But then we also do tumor-targeted, tumor-focused therapies in a way that does not come with a long list of side effects. And 5 years ago, I learned the technique of insulin potentiation therapy from the grandson of the inventor. The microphone? Oh, it drops. Oh, hello? Red. So I take this one. Battery's up. It's all right. So 5 years ago, I learned the technique called insulin potentiation therapy, low-dose chemotherapy from the grandson of the inventor, a gentleman who works in Tijuana, Mexico, Dr. Donato Garcia Perez. And his grandfather developed this technique some 80 years ago, where he learned that insulin is a potent potentizer of other chemical drugs, both antibiotics, but also chemotherapy drugs. Why? Because both inflamed cells and cancer cells are dependent on sugar, or are sugar metabolizers with a 10 to 15 times higher sugar metabolic rate. Radiologists know it and use PET-CT scans to stain cancer cells with radioactive sugar. So if we lower blood sugar with a little bit of insulin and bring it down to about half of the fasting glucose level that we measure when we start the treatment, cancer cells become up to many times more sensitive to the drugs and open their receptors, their glucose channels. And if you then inject chemotherapy or an antibiotic, you can expect a manifold higher absorption of the drug. So the dosages we use in insulin potentiation are around 20 to 25% of a standard dosage, and the reduction in of the dosage down to this level comes with a significant reduction of side effects. I would say almost no side effects in the way we use it. So it's more selective because of the glucose aspect of cancer metabolism.
it's less harmful, and it's more tolerable. And it's not limited through side effects, which is the sad endpoint of most traditional chemotherapy protocols, that if it's not leukemia, we can't expect a complete cure from chemotherapy, so it's a lifelong maintenance therapy that oncologists provide with chemotherapy, and the endpoint is almost always the point of tolerance when chemotherapy is not tolerated any longer. So we can prolong the interval of tolerance quite a bit. We also use biological anti-cancer agents and have a compound pharmacy that produces injectable drugs like injectable turmeric, curcumin, injectable catechins from green tea extract, injectable shogaol from ginger, injectable artesunate, which is a salt from Artemisia annua, Chinese wormwood. And of course we use high dosages of vitamin C intravenously, but we also use synthetic drugs based on a chemosensitivity analysis that a laboratory in Düsseldorf provides us with. We send blood to this laboratory, and they, based on a liquid biopsy, they isolate the circulating tumor cells and do tests at the laboratory to find out which drug is the best. So these are the drugs that we use. Mistletoe, not to forget. Intravenous mistletoe therapy under IPT conditions is extremely powerful. The other targeted tumor-centered treatment that we do is local hyperthermia. We use devices that produce a radio wave field at the frequency of 13.56 megahertz, totally harmless to healthy cells, and cancer cells go into resonance, pick up this frequency, overheat to around 43, 44 centigrade. What's that in Fahrenheit? 110, maybe 115. So pretty high. But only localized because of the resonance phenomenon that cancer cells go into resonance at this frequency. We overheat selectively cancer cells and do parallel to local hyperthermia our infusion therapy and give it a good synergy partner with the heat. Heat therapy alone has not reached a level of satisfactory tumor control, but it's a very good add-on therapy to give a good synergy together with parallel given chemotherapy or parallel given radiotherapy. So it's an enhancement of both infusion therapy and radiotherapy. 1 hour at a time, multiple times in a row. So let me summarize. This is the toolbox that we use and that you can read more about in the book, Holistic Cancer Medicine. This is our map of therapeutic processes that are therapeutic tools that we use at Arcadia Clinic. And a year ago, the German version of my book came out to the market, and only 3 months ago, the English-American version under this title, and I'm extremely happy to share that with you. It's a self-empowerment book. It's a book for everybody who's interested in this topic. You don't need to be a medical doctor or biologist, but I heard from doctors, colleagues, and fellows who read it that it was not boring for them either, so it's for everybody who wants to get an overview from biological to psychological, spiritual at the end of the book, and with a list of references where you can deepen your knowledge even more. And this is what I wanted to bring to this conference, and if you want to contact me, these are the contact details. This little picture shows Arcadia Clinic. The clinic, I work as a medical director in the middle of Germany, close to a city called Kassel, known, for instance, by the Grimm brothers, who collected the fairy tales and published them to the world. And Bad Emstal is one of the villages around Kassel where the storytellers still kept the memories alive of the Grimm brothers' fairy tales that Walt Disney made world famous. So if you want to come to Kassel, don't miss the Grimm Brothers Museum. It's very close. And have a look at our clinic, and thank you for your attention. And I don't know if there is time for answers. Anne? Yes? So, if you have questions, here or at the book tables, just, yeah.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Very, very interesting and very, very motivating.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you about the Greek test. What do you think about that test? It has to do with the liquid biopsy.
I know. The so-called Greek test is a test that is done at the laboratory in Greece. Dr. Ioannis Papasoteriou is the owner of the laboratory that is located in the north of Greece. And I met Dr. Papasoteriou some 10 years ago on a conference in Germany, and I was intrigued by his lecture and his knowledge on circulating tumor cells, and I sent him test samples and blood samples. But I had to find out that it did not improve the success rate of our treatments, and I wondered why. This is around 10 years ago. So I asked specialists in the field of circulating tumor cells in Germany, and I learned that one of the pitfalls of the whole procedure to send cells to this laboratory, if you're not living in Thessaloniki, is that your cells are for 5, 6, sometimes 7 or more days in the air on the way from your body to the laboratory, and in these 6, 7 days, they change their behavior quite a bit. They adapt to the raising levels of lactic acid in your blood sample, to the falling levels of oxygen, and to all the metabolic changes and biochemical changes. And what arrives at the laboratory is a different type of cell than what you had in your body days before. So what is the difference with what we do with the Düsseldorf laboratory? Well, we call a courier that brings the blood tube door to door within a few hours. And that makes all the difference.
So more accurate.
More accurate, and to a level where accuracy means everything. If you miss the point of measuring cells that represent the cellular behavior inside the patient, then you miss everything. Then everything is in vain. It's like looking at the biochemistry of your grandmother and say something about your biology. You are still related to your grandmother, but it's not the same organism. So the second difficulty was that the laboratory multiplies these cells in breeding boxes and expands the number from a few to many millions. And that's the next pitfall, if you ask me, that they manipulate the cells too much. They should measure the cellular activity with the cells that arrive at the laboratory and not look at the third or fourth or fifth generation of the cells that they receive. So they make, if you ask me, 2 mistakes.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Saupe, you briefly touched on, you mentioned that you use PEMF therapy in your clinic.
Yeah.
In my enthusiasm for PEMF, I went out and bought a Beamer, which I've been using at home, but
Yeah.
I later found out that the frequencies aren't really right as a cancer device. So I'm curious which one you use in your clinic, and if you could recommend any PEMF device for home use that's indicated for cancer.
Yeah. For you here in the United States, I want to refer to Dr. William Pauluk, who is the magnetic field therapy expert in your country, and I will meet him in 2 weeks' time on a conference in Arizona. I refer to his website and his texts on his website for years. We use a device manufactured in the south of Germany, in Bad Reichenhall. The company's name is Santera, and the device's name is called Sansa, but it's not registered in your country. It's extremely expensive to register a medical device and to bring it through the Food and Drug Administration's requirements. So that's why the German company has no idea and no plan to bring it to the American market. So you don't need to buy a German device. Look up devices on Dr. Pauluk's website, and depending on how much you want to invest, there are devices from, I would say, $2,000 on up to many, many $1,000. Look for a device that gives you a 100 microtesla magnetic field on the whole body mattress and a couple of hundred up to 300-400 microtesla on a treatment cushion. And that is all you need to get better microcirculation, and as a consequence of that, more oxygen and more mitochondrial power. So it's an indirect cancer treatment. It's nothing that kills cancer, but it works on the microenvironment.
Could you just repeat those stats for the mat and the accessory?
Yes, yes. Do you use what?
The numbers that you just mentioned for the mat and the...
100 microtesla for the whole body mattress, 300 for a cushion, and then you can get more powerful local applicators that go up to 10,000 microtesla, but they cost a lot. And it's questionable if you really need them. They're more for pain relief. And remember, it's not an anti-cancer therapy, it's a pro-vitality therapy.
Sorry, we've run out of time. We have to go to lunch. The hotel has set everything up and they expect us out there. So, Dr. Saupe will be here the entire meeting and you can approach him, and he also has some books to sell. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne.